So, today we're going to do a breakdown, review, and find some Easter eggs for episode 3 of Hawkeye entitled Echoes, in which we get the backstory / introduction for the upcoming Marvel Studios Echo. There's also a lot of cool stuff happening in this episode, so let's unpack. Okay, so episode 3 starts with the backstory of a girl introduced at the end of episode 2. To Marvel fans who followed the MCU news, we know who she is. It's Echo, aka Maya. But for regular human beings, the episode cliffhanger would most likely be met with "Who that?", which doesn't actually help as far as character intros are concerned. Anyway, I'm glad we get to see who she is at the beginning of this episode, a deaf student being taught by the teacher with a great daughter-dad relationship. And the best thing is, oh my god, all that sign language. They didn't dumb it down, didn't make a big fuss about it, and just used it like a regular conversation. And everything was shot as if it was a vocalized dialogue scene. And so, Maya grew up to be a tough son of a bitch. I love this character more and more the further we get to know about her. Her missing limb didn't stop her from kicking ass. And as a differently abled person, none of her disabilities held her back. But instead, as we'll see later, some of them was actually an advantage. I wonder what they'll do with her prosthetic leg. Betcha it'll come up later. Anyway, Clint Barton, as the Ronin, brutally murdered the whole gang, ending up with a teary goodbye between her and her dad. And I love how everything was shot in sign language and subtitled. If any of you got any problems with subtitle, get over that 1-inch barrier. Oh, by the way, her dying father placed his bloody hand on her face one last time. And this will become her signature look in the comics. And so, we caught up to the end of the last episode. And we can see that Clint and Kate was being held hostage at an abandoned KB store, a defunct American toy company. Now, do Disney own the rights to their brand now? I wonder. Anyway, in this defunct store, the Tracksuit Mafia made them go for a ride, and after some blah 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 with the baddies, something which Hawkeye would just sit through, bored, as if he must have done this too many times before, the noob Kate Bishop was just too excited to engage with her captors.
Okay, see you.
As this was her first time being held as a hostage.
I think you talk too much. Blah, 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 blah. She always like this.
Anyway, Clint finally get to meet Maya. And the first thing we get to engage is with Clint's hearing aid. Effectively deaf, Clint resorted to using a hearing aid. In contrast to Maya's fluency in sign language, something that she admonished him about.
You rely too much on technology. You might find you're better off without it.
But Clint's response was,
Boy. Yeah, sometimes I think that very same thing.
anyway,
Oh boy. More cookie, please. Thank you.
may seem like something like some smart assery that you usually see with villain interrogation scenes like this. But this time, it goes even deeper. Now, keep in mind that Clint is a family man and a really super good dad who will be home for Christmas. And the fact that he knows the sign language for it, more cookies please, and did it correctly, means he practiced this with his kid. Which is a great callback to a previous episode where he did some rudimentary sign language with his son.
More.
And there it is, the sign language for more. So, this time, it works both ways. And now that we've got that out of the way, we could go on with the interrogation, in which
He's not rude.
Maya's dialogue is being translated by Kazi.
Spoiled rotten.
She beat up a few of my guys and then came running when you were in trouble.
I would love to see a subtitle of her sign language here too, but we got that translated already. That would be a very fun redundancy. But anyway, I love how this dynamic is being used to tell us the sign language for.
So who got him then?
Black Widow. By the way, apparently that's not the sign language for black nor for widow. So, if anyone know what this sign language literally translates to, chime in the comment below, will ya? Oh, and that thing with
Ronin
what
is
Clint
dead.
said about
And the person
Ronin being dead,
That's convenient.
and Black Widow was there, and he was too.
I was there.
Well, one way to interpret this is to take it at face value, in which, just like the Tracksuit Gang perceive it to be, that the Ronin has physically died, and that Clint was lying.
You're lying.
But, and this is a big but, on the other side of the coin, we know in Avengers Endgame that, as the Ronin, Clint was on a violent rampage and was in pain for the loss of his loved ones, killing all kinds of bad people left and right without mercy, something he's not very proud of. Until
You shouldn't be here.
Natasha showed up.
Killing all these people isn't gonna bring your family back. We found something, a chance, maybe.
Brought him peace and put the rampage to a stop. And from that moment on, the person that was the Ronin was dead. Clint was there, and now the Black Widow is gone. So, what he told you was true.
From a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Anyway, they didn't make any progress with Clint,
Okay, clearly this isn't working.
so they switched to Kate. But Maya just can't take it anymore and immediately got physical with Kate. And that scared her.
Oh my god.
Luckily,
Shoot off,
Clint
'cause I didn't
was
wanna-
too experienced to know how to handle this and gave her some wise counsel.
No, now's not the time to be scared. We're gonna get out of this. You'll go back to living your life. I'll go back to my family. You gotta harness that overconfidence of yours, okay? It's ridiculous. Overconfidence. You remember that one?
Then all hell broke loose. And after some cool parkour, we get to see Maya face off with Hawkeye, and we see her prosthetic leg come into play. Told you it'll come up later in the show. And as she kicked Clint's hearing aid out of his ear and broke it, Clint got his bow and arrows back following some fight, and we get to see him taking the upper hand, pinning Echo to the wall. And here's the fun bit. Clint went on a backflip and shot the arrow past Kazi's ear and freed Kate. But here's the thing. Arrows, they don't go straight like that. They wobble when in midair, but then again, soft. This is a movie where people carry their quiver on their back, so there's that. After some cool archery trick, and gymnastics, they decided to pick up Clint's hearing aid, but abandon Kate's bow.
Come on, we gotta go.
But that girl still has my bow.
And we're finally out of the abandoned KB toy store.
Oh, can we take this one?
Not smashing a 72 Challenger, come on.
They really should have smashed that 72 Challenger though. Anyway, they got something better. The best long shot in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. In a shot that pays homage to Alfonso Cuarón's one long shot from inside the car interior, but this time with a handheld camera instead of a camera control rig, which allows for a more dynamic and motivated shot compared to what they did in Children of Men. Starting from the Tracksuit Mafia giving chase and jumping on the hood, and as the car turns around, the camera pans to the right to look at the back of the car where the rear windshield gets shot to bits. And we see that the Tracksuit Mafia gives chase to our hero. We're on the back seat of probably the most intense car chase scene in Marvel history.
How many we got?
But suddenly, the Tracksuit Mafia caught up with them, and we see the Trust a Bro moving company passing by with a phone number 503-164-7665 plastered on the door. The phone number means they were based in northwestern Oregon. I wonder what that has to do with. Anyway, camera is still motivated to pan to the right to follow the truck when it opened its back door and revealed the tracksuit. Clint then skillfully turned the car around and we left the suits behind.
Wait. We're out of regular arrows.
Oh my god, trick arrows?
After going through some of the trick arrows that Barton fucking lied about, we finally get to my favorite part of the shot.
I was born.
Kate got out of the car by the window and the camera followed her out. We're hanging out the windows, guys. Alfonso Cuarón, eat your heart out. Unfortunately, this is where the long shot ended, clocking it at 1 minute, 6 seconds, and 5 spare frames. Note, Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men long shot was 3.5 minutes long. Anyway, we're not finished yet, because now we get to see all the trick arrows that Clint has been hoarding up over the years. And don't forget to subscribe, as we will rank all the trick arrows in a future video. First up,
Play-Doh arrow?
said Kate, even though Clint is effectively deaf. Then,
Hit the wheels with the putty arrow.
and I love how Clint just nods approvingly, even though he can't hear a single shit that Kate said. What's great about this action piece is that we begin to see both of them starting to think the same way.
You know, this would be a lot easier if we were facing the other way.
You were facing the other way.
Yeah, just that. Hey, we're communicating.
OMG, that rotoscoping job though. Now, as a side note, so for sure this scene was shot in the studio, probably with a green screen job, and rotoscoping hair is one of the hardest things to do. Doubly so when you have to composite the shot against a black background. So a big company like Disney would still probably fail at it. Sarcasm. Moving on. Next trick arrow is the bomb arrow.
Holy
Shit. And that's the end of the Trust the Bro truck. Well, one of them anyway. Moving on.
There are 4 arrows more dangerous than that one?
Yeah! Ooh, who's that? Looks like the 72 Challenger showed up with Maya on the steering wheel. Next up.
A plunger arrow? What is a trick that is completely useless?
I love that. Here's the thing. I love how Kate kept coming back to Clint to complain, even though Clint can't hear anything. And after a gratuitous detour through the Christmas tree farm, I mean, this is a Christmas movie after all, just like Die Hard. Anyway, next up.
Please be a good one. Please be a good one.
Is the, what the hell is that one called? Arrow. Yeah, we're gonna go with that name here. Anyway, next we have
Acid arrows. Drop the stuff.
and Kate used the acid arrow and it was super effective. They broke some public facility. Ooh, hubcap fell off. Anyway, the Challenger gives chase to the bridge, and luckily they brought Kate's bow. I mean, we're gonna need 2 bows for the last trick arrow here.
I'll take that, thank you.
But before that, we have one more arrow. The purple gas arrow, the kryptonite of the 72 Challenger. And after all that,
The Challenger gets totaled anyway.
and then a convenient traffic jam stops the car for our final arrow. By the way, that traffic, it goes away once we don't need it anymore. And Kate can't stop herself from complaining to Clint,
I don't even know what the plan is. This is just a normal arrow.
even though,
I have no idea what you're saying.
but then,
Shoot up.
OMG Pim Arrow! I really love that one. It felt so satisfying to have that giant arrow pin that truck in half. That's amazing. By the way, did you notice the giant continuity error here in this sequence? I even showed you in this video. Well, I'll post it in a future video here in my channel, so make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification. It'll come out in the next few days, okay? And so, the final arrow.
Take this. Cover me.
A USB arrow? What am I supposed to do with this?
One minor point. I love the cinematography here of hiding the tip of the arrow behind the car. We can't see what it is, but then it's revealed to be a USB arrow.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Seriously, what are you supposed to do with this?
You do not want to see what this arrow does. Trust me.
Oh, I don't know.
Download commencing.
Maybe use it to take down the most powerful multiversal being the universe has ever seen. And quite a nice Easter egg going back to the What If series, in which Clint uses the USB arrow to download Arnim Zola and use it to take down the most powerful multiversal being the multiverse has ever seen. Anyway, back to the story. Meanwhile, Clint grabbed that plunger arrow and used the grappling hook that we saw in the Avengers. Pretty cool. But instead of it being shot out using an arrow, the grappling hook is now built in inside of Clint's bow. And they grappled on top of a moving train and stuck there using the plunger arrow. I thought it was going to use the plunger arrow as a grappling hook, but this worked too anyway. So, once they got inside, there's this cool scene that showed you how well they've built their relationship.
Oh, we gotta walk the dog.
Kate said.
He's been cooped up all day.
And ended the scene with Hawkeye saying the same thing.
Probably should walk the dog. Don't you think?
Now remember, he's still functionally deaf at this point.
Been cooped up all day.
And the single sole purpose of this scene is that they are now in the same wavelength. They both just sit down and think of what to say and pretty much agree on everything, including...
Call yourself one of the world's greatest archers.
After he saw her in action all day. Anyway, the next day, Rogers the Musical.
Enough said.
Or what I originally thought was the next day to the way this scene was presented with all the sunlight angle and everything. No, it wasn't the next day because in the scene after this, Kazi pointed out in sign language, this morning kind of got out of hand. So, this was later that day. And to point out the obvious, the loud, cheerful music we're presented with only served to do one thing.
Open the present.
As a contrast against the fact that Clint still can't hear anything. It's a great Chekhov's gun. In order to hammer it down to the audience of the following character study. So, someone called him, and he can't hear shit.
Hey, babe. Hey, listen.
Though if you, the audience, watch it with subtitles on, Disney Plus spoiled it by putting,
Hey, babe.
Nathaniel, hi daddy,
I can't really talk right now.
on the subtitle when we were meant to think that Clint thought it was his wife talking or something. Anyway, here begins a sweet moment between Kate and Clint, in which Bishop gets to help her favorite Avenger.
What? Daniel?
And learn about what's at stake for Clint in all of this.
Oh, boy, I got...
His promise to be home for Christmas.
You know I'm going to be there, like I said.
Now, on the surface, some people just take Christmas for granted.
I love you more.
But you know, for Clint Barton,
Goodbye.
it was a real promise. And it's something that means a lot to him. After all, Barton has what most of the other Avengers know is important, but don't have.
I feel just like Vin Diesel. It's all about family, Tom.
So that was a great character moment right there. And I love the last shot in this scene too. It looks so pretty. Anyway, next we learned that the Trustabro moving company is moving out. And here, Maya's hearing difficulties came to be an advantage once more, when she was hesitant to talk about something sensitive in front of her crew.
I wanted to talk.
But Kotze rightfully pointed out that none of these idiots learned ASL in the last 24 hours. Anyway, we have a full dialogue scene here in sign language. So there's that novelty of it that makes it really cool. Maybe we should normalize it a bit. Anyway, here's a bit of detail. In movies, there's this thing that's called a J-cut, in which the audio from the next shot of the scene comes in first before the image comes up. Here's an example of a J-cut.
Block. Delete.
The sound comes out first. Ha ha ha. And then block delete. The name comes from the shape of the track when laid out in the non-linear editor. Looks like a J. Well, because the tail is in front of the track. Moving on. In this scene, we get to see the subtitle come out first, before we cut to the shot of Kotze doing his dialogue in sign language. A J-cut in sign language. Pretty neat. Anyway, Clint and Kate got the earpiece fixed.
Please. Give me 5 minutes. Cash only. Thank you. Told you we'd get it fixed.
And I wonder why they didn't go to get a new one at CVS or...
Avenger supplies?
Because, I mean, somebody stepped on it. It's pretty icky to put it back on your ears. Come on, Clint. And in the scene after that, Clint used, or should I say, not used, his hearing aid to his advantage so he wouldn't have to hear Kate yammering all the time.
Is that all done?
By the way, for any of you lip reader out there watching this, let me know what she's saying in the comment below, will ya?
Can I get some more coffee, please?
Then they have a good heart-to-heart.
Is this life you want to live? You know, to really help people, really try to help people anyway, it comes with a price. It comes with a lot of sacrifices, and some things you'll lose forever.
But still, she's too blinded by the glitter.
No, there's also things you gain, like trick arrows and a cool costume.
And Clint kind of died on the inside here. And then she came up with...
Picture this in purple.
Now, for the astute in the audience, you would have recognized the design in purple.
Oh, wow.
For the rest of you, let's catch up.
What's that on his head?
Wings. Like a hawk. That's a nature. That's on your forehead.
Which is a cool callback to two things. First, the old Hawkeye in the comics with the wings on his head, and he really did have a giant H on his forehead. And number two, the fact that Kate is shit at drawing.
I guess you're not an art major.
To which Clint concluded,
Wow, not happening.
That's a J cut, by the way. Anyway, that design, I mean, it can be cool, but I can't get over it. I just can't get over the giant H on his forehead. Anyway, the conversation tracked to the Ronin, and instead of overtly saying, I'm a terrible human being who's done terrible things I'm not proud of.
There are several reasons why I never wear a flashy costume.
He used Kate's proposal for his branding.
My job is to be, number one, a ghost.
And he placed the most important reason of all.
Number two, my wife would divorce me if I put something like this on.
As.
And number three, I'm not a role model. Never have been.
Clint Barton, the diplomat. Though there's one concession that they finally agreed upon.
Whether you like it or not, as far as I'm concerned, we're in this together.
Anyway, as Clint picks up the check.
You'd have to name this dog, you know.
And so Kate tried all kinds of names, and the dog only replied to one.
Pizza dog.
And oh, look at that dog. So cute. But there's more to this, though. In the Funko Pop tie-in to this show, the Kate Bishop figure came with a one-eyed dog named Lucky the Pizza Dog, which in turn confirmed the comic book origin of the Pizza Dog, a pizza-loving dog originally named Arrow, who helped save Hawkeye from the Tracksuit Mafia and lost his left eye. Clint later changed the dog's name to Lucky. So that's the story of Lucky the Pizza Dog. Anyway, they took the dog out for a walk in the park,
He's been
Cooped up all day.
where Clint told Kate that the hot guy's name was...
His name's Kazi.
Now,
Take it these.
this is something of a missed opportunity for Marvel. But we'll talk about this later on in this video. For now, we get a lot of exposition dump of a backstory on a Tracksuit Mafia and a hint of someone above Maya's pay grade.
No, there's someone above Maya. Someone you don't want to mess with.
Now, in the comic book, this would be this guy. The Kingpin, rumored to be one of the Sinister Six villains in the upcoming Spider-Man No Way Home. Opportunity for a tie-in event? We'll find out December 17th. Anyway, Kate's exposition dump was pretty funny though, with her trying to explain to Clint her conspiracy theory about Jack.
He was at the auction that night, and yesterday he offered me a butterscotch.
Not exactly a crime.
And when I tried to stab him in the face to prove he was lying, he parried like a pro.
You tried to stab your mom's fiancé in the face?
Plus, he has everything to gain from Armand's death.
The Jack thing. It's weird. I get it. It's not exactly airtight.
Anyway, they ended up breaking into the penthouse we saw destroyed at the beginning of the series. Nice callback. Building address is 480, by the way. Should someone want to look into it? Okay, I'll look into it later. Subscribe.
Yeah, my great-great-great-great-grandfather built the building.
Impressive. Yeah, I'm in the wrong business.
Anyway, so we move on with the plot and...
You see if there's anything on Kazi.
And here we have that truly missed opportunity. Let's get to it. So when Kate starts searching for Kazi, how did she get her name? In this episode, we know that Clint told her.
His name's Kazi.
But she heard this name mentioned once before, in episode 1, when one of the Tracksuit gang called him off on his pursuit of Kate.
Let's go, bro! Kazi, we go now! Come on!
Within an earshot of Kate, which would make for a really great callback to when Kate was really paying attention to what people say and remembered the name Gary in episode 1. Remember that?
Gary wants you to bring these down right away.
Just these two?
When Kate overheard the name Gary in a conversation.
I thought I was supposed to be the only one working here.
Gary sent me to work here.
And used the name as a get out of jail free card.
So I mean, if you want to bother Gary.
Who told you to come down here?
Gary.
I'm Gary.
But instead, Clint just gave her the name.
His name's Kazi.
Because he knew of him beforehand? They could have just dropped that stupid exposition dump now, had they went with this route instead. And somehow, she knew of Kazi's last name now? Anyway, Jack was there and that's the end of the episode. And so I hope you enjoyed this review as much as I was so giddy making it. See you next week for the review of episode 4. Cheers, love.